Okay, so the basic exercise today is to create a user and provide him the corresponding accesses. And as a developer, okay, so let us play a role play here. Sometime we may log in as a developer and request DBA for the user ID, and then as a DBA we create the user ID and inform the developer, and then again developer will use that user ID, create his DSN and log into his system. And when he tried to access the objects, he may not get the access at the first time. Then again he has to request DBA to request for the object accesses. And then again as a DBA, how do you grant their accesses? And then again as a developer, how you can verify the accesses. Okay, this is a role play kind of exercise today. Okay, we will play as a developer and as a DBA, and we'll see how the requests go on and how we can act on the requests of the developers. Okay, so actually by the time when we connected, it was not started, the server was not yet started, so let us connect again. Okay, so my administrator is connected. Now let's suppose we are the DBS and we got a request from a developer to create his user ID for an application. Okay, so it could be at the time of request itself, they can provide you all the information that for what application they have joined, get to which manager they are reporting, and what all the databases they need for their application, and what type of accesses they require on those application databases. Okay, all this information you may get at a single time, and if it is not very much organized, then you will get a request one by one in an interactive manner. For the first time, you will get a request for the user creation. So for example, now I have got a request for a user creation from a new joinee of my application. So now as a DBA, I have to create a user. So how to create? We have tools menu here, create database. Okay, in case if you want to create a database, you'll go and click the database. Or if you want to create a user, you can click on the user. So let's create the user. Okay, username, user, or let us use the month name, Feb user. Okay, so let us use our month name consistently in all the exercises. The Feb user I have used. Owner. Owner means who contributes space for this user. So for example, I am creating this Feb user from the space of the DBC. Yeah, I can use DBC here. So from DBC, Feb user will pull some space. And what is the password? I'm using the same password, Feb user, but it is not the best practice to use the username as the password. For our remembering purpose, demo purpose, I'm using password as same as the username. And perm space. Again, while we are creating user, generally we don't give any perm space for them because we provide access to some other common databases or users which are common for the application, but we generally don't give perm space to the users. Okay. In case if you want to give, yes you can, it won't restrict you by doing that, but as a best practice you should not provide him any perm space while creation of the user. Okay. Spool space and the temp space. We know for what all these spaces are. Perm spaces for the permanent data, spool is for the intermediary workspace, temp spaces for global temporary tables. Okay, and here we have a parameter called account. What is an account? Account gives the priority information of the users. Priority means what is the severity of his particular tasks. For example, we have three types of tasks here. You see the low priority, the medium priority, high priority, and the rush priority. So these are four different levels of priorities you can define for a user. The low priority would be with $L, medium priority with $M, high with $H, rush. Okay, it is more than high priority. It is $R. This is printed as $R. And how these priorities would work? Because CPU services provided for a particular request of a user who has a low priority is 1. That is, only one CPU cycle would be given for a particular task submitted by this low priority users. And if he is a medium priority user, 2 CPU cycles would work continuously on your request. If you are a high priority user, 4 CPU cycles would continuously work to finish your request. So by these 4 CPU cycles, your request should be completed at the time. If you have still need more priority, then you can go for a rush where 8 CPU cycles would work continuously to finish your request. This is the weightage of the request submitted by the rush user is huge. Generally super DBAs only have this, and the critical tactical questions, okay, which are accessed by the associates or employees who directly deals with the customer. Okay, those people would have such type of rush access where they need to prioritize their work and serve the customers as soon as possible. Yeah, so those type of critical queries, whoever applies on the Teradata, for those you can give a rush priority. Yeah, normal OLTPs and tactical queries where they can wait for some time, yeah, they are high priority users, the business users. Then the complex ad hoc queries, which may need so much of data for reporting, the trending analysis, the decision supporting systems, the data warehouse decision supporting systems, those type of applications, okay, which can use Teradata with historical information. Those will get medium priority so that the other users won't impact. And the low priority would be given for the batch applications, batch jobs, where in the off business hours they load the data into the warehouse systems so that by tomorrow business hours the data would be available. So they have much time to load. So off business hours they have priorities, and during business hours these batch jobs will have low priorities. Then you can set these priorities as per their roles, responsibilities, and the criticality of responding to the users. Okay, so give any of the priorities like this. $M is medium priority. The L, M, H, and R, these are the possible values what you can give, and this priority string should be prefixed with the $. Along with this, you may use account string expansion. Right? You can use account string expansion, which is used to aggregate the resource usage of this particular user at particular intervals. For example, if I use an account string expansion $D, for each day I can aggregate the resources used by this particular user. This is all for auditing and reporting purpose. It is not to give a priority. I have given medium priority. that is a priority. But after giving medium priority, I may have a need that I have to track this particular user, get to report how much resource or how much CPU he has consumed with his medium priority on this particular date. If I have a reporting need on the resource consumption of each user on a particular frequency, I can use some account string expansions which can help me to aggregate the resource consumption at the particular intervals. If I use date each day, YYMMDD. If I give T also like this, for each hour, minute, seconds, it will aggregate. That means the low granularity of the resource consumption is captured here. If I give only H, that is hour, each hour I can track his resource consumption, but for each hour how much CPU he is consuming. Okay, so you can select any one of these account string expansion strings, account string expansions, to capture his resource consumption at that particular level. Log on time. For this log on, how much resources he consumed. For this particular session, how much. Ampersand I is for each request. If we submit 100 queries, for each request I can capture his resource consumption. So like this, we may select any one of these granularity levels, how we want to capture the user's resource consumption. And along with this, you may use application names. For example, this is an HR application. I can use it like this. So this is all called as the account string expansion. Priority, the account string expansion, it is used for capturing the resource consumption at a particular interval, so that I can aggregate it. Okay. So these are the dictionary views you can use to see how many accounts are there for each user. And here, okay, we have to remember, you can give more than one priority to the users. You can assign more than one. $H, $D, $L, Ampersand L, for example, something, and comma, one more. You can give n number of priorities, but by default, the first priority will be applied. So when we can apply the other priorities? Yes, you can apply them during the login by specifying the account string also, so that you will log in with high priority. Because sometimes if you have a need of logging in with the high priority, then while logging in itself, you can mention that account string. But by default, if you don't mention anything, you will get the first account string which is assigned to you. If you want to log into the other priority levels, they should be given at the time of user creation. So they should be aligned to you, and you have to use them explicitly at the time of logging into the sessions. So it is possible to have more than one account strings defined for the user. Let's see. And then default database. Whenever this user login, his default database should be his application database. For example, it is an HR. If HR exists, we can give HR. Here it is, for example, retail application he belongs to. So I have given retail database, okay, which exists in our samples here, the default database. Okay. And then profiles, we'll go to this topic again. You can create a profile and you can align that profile to the user. So we will see what is a profile. And then roles. Yes, we'll see the roles, what is a role, how to create it, and how to align it to user in the next sessions. And default journal, in case if you want to give the journal option for this database, okay, you have to use before journal and after journal, and you can use a database which captures the general information. These are the comments, startup string, which has to be used at the startup. Generally don't use this comment to just give a text message why this user is being created, any description if you want to give to this user. If you want to align journal information for this database, yes, you can do it. If the journal is enabled at the database level, then only the tables of this particular database can enable journals. Okay, if database is not enabled with journal, and if you are creating a table with a journal of before image or after image, it cannot create those tables. So we have to decide, okay, at the time of user or database creation, whether this particular user to be created with journal. How we can decide it? By seeing at each table level, is there any table to be created with a journal functionality? If not, go for no. Otherwise, we'll go for yes, before journal. And if you want to create 2 copies of the before journal, you can go with dual option. And then after journal, similarly. And if you want to give a fallback option, you can use this fallback checkbox. And if you want to change any of these particular parameters at the user level, okay, the character sets, the time zones defaultly to be used, the date format, the default character sets, everything you can set at the time of user creations. So once you fill all these parameters, you can use create button here. See, this is the SQL which has to be executed. How I able to see this query here? You see the menu items, menu button. Here this menu button. This has to be enabled. Just click one time on this, so that next time onwards, whatever action you do with tools, it will show you the SQL before executing it. You can see the SQL, and if you are satisfied with the SQL also, then you can execute it by run query button here. It's a run query button. If you are okay with this SQL, or if you want to copy this SQL and use it for further purpose, you can copy this SQL also. And if you are okay, you can run this. See here at the bottom, the status is create completed. Okay, so we are able to create the user, Feb user. So now you will inform that user that you are created with your user ID and the password is same as your username. So please log in and check. Okay. Now let us log into SQL Assistant as a developer, and we will use this Feb user to log into the machine. So Ravi had a question. If I don't give any account string at the time of user creation, what happens? Okay. So the default priority to be used can be set at the DBC console at the time of configuration. Okay, at the time of Teradata configuration, what the values they provide for the default values, in case you don't provide, those values will be taken. Okay. That could be medium priority, most probably, always. If you don't give anything, generally medium priority will be taken by the accounts, or sometimes the DBC priorities. Okay, there is a priority called DBC. So DBC priority can also be taken as a default. So it's best practice to use the account string while creation of the user. Otherwise, we are not sure what type of priority it would take. It all depends on the first time configuration they do at the Teradata, the DBC console windows. Okay. Now, as a developer, I had a response from the DBA that my user is being created and my username is Feb user, right? So I have to log in with my Feb user. So how I can log in with my user ID? Through SQL Assistant. Through SQL Assistant, if I have to log in, I have to create my DSN. So first I have to create my DSN. How to create a DSN? Define ODBC data source. See, in tools, define ODBC data source. because this is the first time login. So I have to create my own DSN. I'm not using the existing DSNs for the existing users. I got my new own user ID. So I have to add it first time, right? User DSN, add it. You see Teradata here, the ODBC. Select the Teradata and finish it. You'll get a pop-up which asks you for the name of the DSN you are creating. Let me use DSN underscore feb user. This is the DSN name and this is feb users DSN. Some description and the host server name of the Teradata. So here the host server name is local TD for my demos version, but for enterprise you will get the server name also or IP address. You have to use that particular server name or IP address. And then what is the username? Feb user. This is created for me, Feb user. What is the password? Feb user. Default database. Again, you can give a default database here at the DSN level. At the user level, we have given one database, that is retail. At the default database, at the DSN level, as a user, I also have an opportunity to override my database. Whatever database he put, it would work if I don't use any database here in the DSN. Otherwise, this would take priority. Okay, if I want financial here, I can use financial, so that whenever I log in with my DSN with Feb user ID, I will have financial as my default database. Account string. There at the time of user creation we have given him medium priority and that was the default priority. If I want to override anything, I can override it here, provided at the time of user creation the DBA has to assign me multiple priorities like low, medium, high. Then I can use one of them in my DSNs. If I don't give anything, the first priority whatever DBA has assigned to me, that will take effect. So now let me create it. Click on OK. So it will give you a warning because I have saved password also in the DSN. Generally it is not the best practice to save the password in the DSNs, but here I am saving it. But generally you should not save it in the DSN itself. Now I have to log in. So I have to use my new DSN. Go to tools, connect, machine data source, search for my Feb user DSN which I have created right now, DSN underscore Feb user, click on OK. So it will be connected. Okay, let me see now. So it got connected with Feb user. The user is Feb user and see my default database financial. At the time of user creation I have given a retail, but I have overridden at the DSN level, so it has taken impact. Okay, so now select star from financial. Sorry, financial dot some database table we have to use, right? In financial, what all tables we have? See, it is not displaying any tables because he don't have access. Right? And we know retail, right? Retail dot cust one or cust something. Let me access any of these objects. See here, select failed. The user does not have select access to retail.cust1. So I have my user ID created, but I did not request for any access. So DBA has created my user ID, but he didn't provide any access to me. I got a raw ID with no access on any other databases. If I have pump space available, I can create tables in my own user, but I cannot access anything else. So there is no use, right? I have the user ID, but I don't have any access on any database, so I cannot do anything. So again, I have to request DBA to grant me access on retail. Okay? You will provide justification why you need this access, okay, why you need access on these particular objects. Then the DBA has to provide you the access. So now the developer has requested the access and DBA has received, and he logged into the administrator to grant him access. So how to grant access? Tools, grant. See here in tools, grant and revoke, you can use the object rights. Use tools, grant, object rights. Click on it. You'll get a pop-up here. So in this pop-up, you will see on which database you have to grant access. So you can select the database on which the user has requested access. For example, retail. And then, do you want access on the whole database or any particular table or any particular view, macro, index, whatever individual object also can select within the database. If you want to grant him access on a particular table of the retail, you can select a table here. It will show you the tables on which you can grant the access. So is it a table level or view level, macro level? You can select the object type here, and then it will display all such objects, so that you can select those objects and can grant access at the table level and view level also. But most probably you may give access at the database level, so the total database. And here in this window, you select the user to which you want to grant the access. For which user we want to grant access? The Feb user, which we have created just now, right? The Feb user should get access on retail. Okay, what access he need? Does he need write access or only select access or macro execution? Whatever access he requested, you can select those particular access levels here. See, select, insert, update, delete, collect statistics, execute macros, dump, restore for archivals, whatever accesses he need, you can select here. If you need the whole access on this database, you can select all here. So it will get everything for him. You may use all but. Okay, if you select this, you can select few databases, accept them, everything else will be granted to him. Okay, so you may select one of these. Okay. Or you can select whatever you want individually, and then you click on grant button here. Okay, you understood here? You may select individually whatever he want, or if he want everything, you can select an all button here. If you want to get all but few of them should not be granted, then you select all but, and you select the access which should not be given, so that the rest of the access will be given. Yeah, that is how you can use this. Yeah. And then you select the grant button here. It will show you the whole SQL. How are you able to see the SQL? You have to enable this button. Yeah. Then you will get the SQL. So what all access we are granting? Grant all these accesses on retail database to Feb user. So if I execute, the user will get all the access. See here, status grant completed. Okay. So now Feb user got all access on retail. So now DBA will inform him you are granted with all access on retail database. Now as a developer, you will see whether you got access or not. See, now I able to access the retail databases as a Feb user, which I logged in with DSN underscore Feb user. I requested access, DB has granted, and now I able to access the table. This is how you can grant accesses for users by using Teradata admin. Okay, generally it may not be Teradata administrator always. Some organizations may use stored procedures, but the SQL would be same. Some organization may use macros, but the SQL should be same. Okay. Some may use BTEX. The SQL, the core SQL to be executed is this, which we have to understand. So here you can understand it. We can do one more exercise here. Yeah. Now after some time, this user worked on this retail database, he got transferred to some other application. So now he has to get access on some other databases, but he want to revoke. He want to get his access revoked on the retail. He is not anymore using this retail. So he has requested DBA revoke his accesses on this retail and grant access on financial, for example. So now as a DBA again, I have to log in, go to grant and revoke, object rights, select the database on which we have to revoke the accesses. So retail at the database level we have to revoke. To whom we have to revoke? Feb user. So if we select Feb user here and the database from which we want to revoke, you won't see anything displayed here, what all accesses he already has. Okay. For revoke, you should know what all database you already have, right? It's not showing it. So click on the display button here. You see a display? Just click on display. It will give you what all accesses this Feb user has on this retail database. Yeah. And if you want to revoke all the things, just click on revoke button. Everything will be revoked. Or if you want to revoke any particular access, you just select them. You unselect all of them. Select only those which you want to revoke, so that only those particular accesses can be revoked. If you want to revoke everything, yes, whatever displayed, just click on revoke. See, this is the revoke. Revoke all the accesses on retail from Feb user. Earlier we used to Feb user, now revoking from this Feb user. So this syntax we should be familiar with. Now I am executing it. See, revoke completed. So if I try again, same SQL, what he should get? The user does not have select access on this table. Like this, you can revoke it. And if you want access on any other databases, again you will go and grant access on the particular object with required access rights. This is how you can create a user, assign him a priority, assign him a account string expansion for the reporting purpose of the usages, the CPU usage and the AMP usage. Everything can track with this account string expansions. And there are some data dictionary views which can help us to find what priorities are assigned to what users and what is the resource usages. Okay, let's see how we can use these views. And before this, here the slides give you here the explanation while creation of the user. Let me increase the font. Okay. While creation of the user, you can give all the parameters and account strings. I have given multiple account string with multiple account string expansions. What is the default? The first account string, whatever you created, that is the default priority. And if it is a BTEC I am logging in, I can log in like this. Generally this is the format how we log in, right? The dot logon, the host name / username, comma, password. But if you want to mention, okay, if you log in like this, you will get the medium priority always, the first priority set. But if you want to log in with high priority, then what you can do, you can mention the account string also after the password with a comma separator. Then you are logging in to the session with the other account ID which is not default. For example, this .logon, username, the host name, username, comma password, comma account string. So for that particular session, you are logging in with high priority account string. And then after logging into the session, if you have a need to change your account string, then you can use a set session account command. These two we know, right? Batch logon and BTEC interactive logon. Interactive logon also we know. You will log in with this by missing the password. It will ask you the password and you will enter the password again at the prompt. That is the only difference in batch logon and interactive logon. You miss the password in the interactive logon, it will ask you for prompt, then you will provide the password. So these two are same. You will log in with other than the default account string. And after logging in to the session, if you have a need to change your account string, you can use a command called set session account is equal to the account ID, whatever you want to change, and you can specify this change should be impacted the single request or the entire session till I log off. You can set the session account equal to the account string other than default, or maybe with what you logged on, you don't want to continue with that, you want to change it in the session itself, then you can use set session account, the account string, and would it be impacted to the single request or an entire session. So whatever request I execute or I submit in the rest of the session. For example, set session account equal to the account string for session. So for the entire session, whatever request I submit in the session will be taken priority of high. Like this. You can connect to this system or establish these sessions with other than the default priorities at the time of logons, and after logon also you have an option of changing it with the set session account command. Okay. And this is the usage of the data dictionary views to track the resource consumption of the users. This is a sample query. Select star from DBC account info. So this is DBC account info is the data dictionary view here, which gives you the information about each and every user and their corresponding account strings. And is it a user or profile? Okay, we'll see what is a profile. But you can see here, is it assigned to the user individually or it is coming through a profile? You can find each user and their corresponding priorities, account strings, account names. And from the AMP usage, you can report how much CPU or how much disk IO they have consumed through a particular priority string. Select username, account name, sum of the CPU time, sum of the IOs from AMP usage, where username is equal to so and so user ID, to whom you want to track for the resource usages, group by and order by, with some formattings. See, this particular user, he has different account strings assigned to him. So with this particular account string of medium, the total he has consumed this much. This much CPU, this much disk IO. And with this particular session, he has consumed this much. So low level granularity. Okay, totally he has consumed this much, and within this, on a particular session, he has consumed 924, and in another session 389, in another session 184, in another session 113. So you can see the different priorities. See, with low priority has consumed less resources, but with medium priorities he consumed high resources. Okay, so you can track him and you can identify him, okay, with what priorities he is consuming a lot and with what priorities he is consuming less, and you can take some decisions on it. Right? If you see very abnormal numbers here, like with low he is consuming very high resources, then it means, okay, he is executing queries for a long time. Right? So we may ask him, okay, what type of queries he is executing, is performance tuning to be required for these SQLs, or if he is a genuine user, he is taking long times for each and every request, then it is not a performance problem. Then you may improve his priorities. Like that, you can take some decisions by auditing the users on their usage purposes. So you may track the application level users resources, and you can charge back billings, the system users reporting. So this is all required for the managers, okay, to build them how much resources these particular application users are using, so how much they have to charge on this particular application. For billing information, they may use this particular reports. If you want to clear them, we have macros called dbc.clear account macro, clear peak disk macros. Okay, so these are some macros which would reset the peak disk macro, that is peak values of all the memories, the peak pump space, peak spool space, peak temp space, all those things will become 0, and whatever will be the peak from now onwards, that will be displayed. Similar way, the accounting macro, whatever information we track, we have audited and it is reported, now it is not required to be exist in the table, then you can just execute this macro, clear accounting macro. It will clear all the data here, so it will start again inserting. If you don't clear it, it will keep on holding the data, so the size of this table will become very huge and huge, which may not be required. So after reporting, just clean it so that it will track the information from now onwards again. So after some time, again weekly or monthly at a particular frequency, you do the reporting again, submit it to the managers, and then clean it. Like this, you can use these macros to clean the data dictionary views which are tracking the resource usage of the users on priority basis. So let me take a halt here, see if I have any questions. Yes, Ravi.
Yeah, Manohar, can we ask account string, once we give the priority as low, can we make it high priority?
Then after creating the user, yeah, you can modify the user. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Let me show you that. So this is how we have created. Now if there is any change in the user priorities, you can modify user. You select that particular user whom you want to change. What is the name? Feb user. Okay, Feb user, then tools, modify user. So it will give you all the parameters. You can change anything here. With the space you want to change, the account strings, the default databases, profiles, roles, anything you want to change, you can change and modify it here. We will modify it. Good. So let us start the next topic at an overview, and we'll continue tomorrow. So here in this slide you can see the possible access rights, the privileges or access rights, what whatever we call, is the right of specific user to perform a specified operation on the object. That is called as a privilege or access right. The right of a specific user to perform a specified operation on the objects. Some access rights don't directly correspond to an SQL statement. It could be of archival accesses, statistics accesses, the index access, all those would also be involved. Okay. So these are the possible accesses. And at the objects, we may grant at database level or a user level, or at an individual table level, view level, macro, trigger, procedure, functions, low level granularity, and can grant at column level also. Okay. So if for a user, if you want to grant access on a particular column of the table, okay, he should access only this particular column, but he should not access any other columns in the table. Yes, you can grant it. Okay, we have some examples, we'll see. But yes, you can grant at column level also to the users. So he can access only those particular columns, but he cannot access the other columns in the same table. And when you create a user, the automatic rights will be given to the created objects. For example, here as a sysdba, I have created a database called accounting. So by the existence of the accounting, he would get all these default accesses, and these are called as automatic rights. Yeah. Once sysdba has created accounting, accounting will get all these accesses by default. These are called as automatic rights. What all rights? He can create tables within accounting himself. The accounting has been created, so accounting by default can create any tables within it, drop them at any time, and create macros, and he can select the access, select the tables of its own accounting related. Okay, insert. All these accesses are automatically given, so they are called as automatic rights. Okay. And by creating this accounting got all these access on itself, but on accounting, sysdba also got all these accesses along with some extra accesses like this: create database, drop database, create user, and drop user. These 4 accesses are extra to the sysdba. So within accounting, if you want to create any database as a sysdba, you can do, but as an accounting, it cannot create a database within itself by default. Okay. So within accounting, if you want to create a table, yes, accounting can create a table because it was already given. If you want to create a macro, yes, it can create a macro. If you want to select the data within the tables, yes, it can select because it is there. But when you create a new database or a user, the user doesn't have a create database and create user access by default. Who has it by default? The parent of the database. So as a sysdba, you can create any other database in accounting. And if you want, accounting should also be enabled to create its own users and databases. Explicitly, you have to grant it. As a sysdba, you have to grant those accesses on accounting so that accounting can also create its own databases within itself. But by default, it won't be there. Right? By default, accounting will get only these yellow accesses, whatever mentioned here. But sysdba would get accesses, all these yellow access and this green access also. Okay. So now you see, from DBC we have sysdba, and from sysdba we have 2 childs, human resource and accounting. Okay. And sysdba has granted user access on human resource to the accounting. Okay, we have seen this example. Now accounting got create user access on human resource, so you would create it. Okay, so accounting is the creator, human resource, DBA and DBC are the owners. Okay, whichever are upper than the hierarchy, they are called owners, right? And it is the immediate owner or immediate parent who contributes this space, and accounting is the creator. So here, if you are explicitly giving some access to the objects, those are called as explicit rights. Right? And by creating the user, he would get some automatic rights on the object. As a owner, they also would get some access on this particular object. Okay? So there are different rights. We call them as automatic rights. By creation of the object, they would automatically get those accesses, and some are called as explicit grants, explicit accesses. With only grant statement, you can grant those accesses to the user. So automatic accesses and the explicit accesses. There are two types of accesses: explicit access and automatic access. All these accesses are defined in the data dictionary views called all rights view. User related rights are mentioned in user rights. And if you want to see what all accesses this particular user has granted to other objects, then you can use this user granted rights. Yeah, these are the user or database which hold the accesses, and this is what all accesses this user has granted to other users. Yeah, the explicit rights, everything, whatever explicit rights this particular user has granted to other users, all are mentioned in user grant rights. What all accesses this particular user has, that you can see in user rights. Yeah, these are different data dictionary views you can use in terms of access rights. We'll see a scenario here tomorrow to understand the access rights better. Any other questions, anyone, in today's topic or any topic so far we covered?